I'd first like to say thanks for everybody being a part of the show. I think it was really great of everybody to step up to the plate. I was kind of nervous when we got the green light at the college to resume exhibitions because I think I told you all in my email, like normally I get 18 months to plan shows. And I'm like, who can I get to do a really good show? And I don't know, like 2 weeks notice, more or less, like to actually commit to it. So I appreciate everybody being able and willing to do it. And I think it worked out. I think we got a really good group.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
going to be really interesting
An
to see
honor to
everything
be part of
work.
this group.
Yeah, it's also awesome that everybody's from New Jersey, so I think that's kind of neat.
Nice.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'll just start with the first question that I had. Um, I'm guessing everybody had a chance to look over it, but and I'll read them just so the sake of the artist talk in the space, people are actually have some context. But and what I'm going to do also is just print out the questions as just like a primer, and I'll just have them kind of nearby in the space because my idea is to just play this on a loop, and then people might come in at different times and not know what the deal is with the talk. So, but I have it. I'm sure at an earlier stage of your career and or education, your subject matter may have been different than what it is today. And can you speak about how you arrived at using the natural world or the landscape as your subject matter, and what were some of the things that you feel influenced this choice? And I have on my screen, I'm not sure how you're seeing it, but I got Sean in the top left, then I'm in the top right, Katrina's under Sean, and then Jason. So I'll just keep going clockwork. We can do it that way. So we'll start, Sean, if you want to start.
Sure. I found myself pretty frustrated with, I used to paint figures, and I found myself kind of frustrated with how to make the sort of meaning I wanted to out of, situations and expressions and gesticulations and everything. And I don't know, started messing around with other things. And well, the short answer is frustration, because I think I found the natural world is such a big passion of mine anyway. I spend so much time outside. And after lots of discussions with my now wife, Allie, I remember her exuberantly just saying, just paint the woods, because I had already had the solution and I kept circling back to it. And I had already done one or two larger paintings of the woods, and it just, I don't know, I think I figured out the reasons. I can talk way more about this later, and I think a lot of your questions have to do with why. But, I didn't, it answered the question, what and why for me.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the short answer.
Katrina, how about you?
Oh, so yeah, sorry, I forgot the sequence.
That's all right.
For me, it took me a long time to figure out why, and for me, it's really related to. It's really tied to my being migrant here in the U.S. and where I was born. I was born in a really tropical. I was the city I was born in. It's kind of this really like precious um, part of, I guess, the tropical world. It's in the Philippines, and it's like the island I was born in is one of the most it's pretty much deforestation. What do you call it? It's just deforested for the past in a short amount of time, and a lot of places don't exist. There's a lot of pollution. There's a lot of there's a lot of changes in kind of the environment I was in. So, and then having no access to, having lost that like access to that place, it existed only in my memory, and just there's this preciousness about the world, this just the environment that we live in. And when I came to the US, it took me a long time to be able to go home again. and having come here and not knowing anything about the United States and not knowing anything about like the Bureau of the Interior, that there's a very strong movements here that are both non-government and government that protects the lands, that we don't have that, you know, in my native country. And for me, there's just this, you know, it's a combination of my love and affection from my native country, but then at the same time, there's like this new love and affection for this, you know, like what we have here in the U.S. At the same time, I know there's also so much controversies about you know, how many organizations out there that really want to encroach on these federal lands to tap it for natural resources. But for me, it's just sense of wonder of what's here. It makes poignant for me of the lost environments that I have abroad. So I think for me, it's this attachment to it, and I feel that my stronger connections to my experience of landscapes here in the U.S. is because I'm trying to recreate or kind of find, you know, like these lost forests and these lost places in the Philippines, in the places here. So I think I obsess over them here because for me it's a way to make it come alive again. And I don't what do you call it, like directly show the places in my work, but it's what I'm thinking of when I make these landscape and nature-based work that I'm in. So I think that's why I do it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's odd because in a way you probably have more of appreciation for those kind of places in the United States than a lot of people in the United States have, right? Because your homeland, you know, had been devastated, right? And it's no longer what it used to be. So a lot of people in, I think, United States take those kind of places for granted. Yeah.
Well, I know even the kind of terrain that I'm obsessed with is the desert. And I know even so many people, even here in the US, have never been to the desert. I obsess about the desert because there's no desert in the Philippines. It's the strangest place that I've ever been, like the dryness, the silence. Maybe there's something about the expanse of the desert that feels it's an ocean. And maybe that's what makes me think about, you know, just the coastal place in the Philippines. But it's just like amazing to me. So I'll move there one day.
Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I was going to grad school that was based around the figure. Everything was drawing and painting the figure. It was an academic program, sort of steeped in traditions of like the French Academy, but in New York. I finished with that 2-year program, and I won this opportunity to go to this beautiful island in the Caribbean for an artist residency. And after having drawn and painted the figure rigorously for the previous 2 years, I found myself kind of not necessarily on like a desert island, but found myself kind of alone in this place, this beautiful landscape that was so unlike anything I had really been in before. And I wanted to paint everything but the figure. I wanted to paint all these you know, the incredible trees and rocks and you know, the beach and the ocean there. And then ended up staying in this place for almost 8 months, and painting all of these, you know, these incredible sites over and over and over again. And so I think partly I fell into painting landscape by, you know, this incredible fortunate situation I was put in this amazing landscape. And really having had enough of people and just like being alone in this amazing place. And so that's really when I turned my attention to recording the landscape, and I keep returning to that same place
So
to
when
make-
you got that opportunity, you didn't go there thinking I'm going to paint the landscape. You got there and then it kind of just worked on you.
Yeah, I mean, I assumed I would be painting the place a bit, but you know, I didn't know what I was going to encounter. I didn't know what the experiences were going to be like, and I didn't realize it was going to strike me as hard as it did. And I sort of, it also was probably at a point where I had just finished school for the first time in my life, going
Yeah.
from high school to college to grad school, back to back to back. And now taking all of this, you know, the skills and what I've learned in those years, and starting to make my own work and having that be in this amazing place. So, you know, like figuring out my hand and what I wanted to paint, while surrounded by, you know, such incredible exotic beauty was, yeah, it just sort of set my course from
Yeah.
there.
And you were in grad school in New York City, right?
Yeah, I was in grad
Yeah.
school in New York City.
So that's
I
a
had
pretty
just
much of a as far apart as you can go. You're right, diametrically in terms of like the environment. New York
Absolutely.
City to a semi, like almost a, you know, uninhabited
Yeah.
tropical island. Yeah.
No, I mean, what luck to finish grad school and then just have time and space to think about what you want to do in such a place. So, yeah.
And that's interesting that like this kind of this breakthrough you had was when you did a residency.
Yeah.
It happened to me too. I think for me the most significant break in my art practice was when I did the residency in a really remote landscape in Wyoming,
Hmm.
and it changed. I didn't expect it. For me, I had no expectations of what to do there. But I think it just jolted me into what I wanted to do in my work. So
Yeah, if
that's
can I interrupt?
yeah, yeah.
Uh, no, I have to say it's striking that both of your stories. And you know, if I elaborate on my story, I was living in New York, um, in Brooklyn, and working throughout the city in film and television, and it was really grueling, this job. And I would barely get weekends for 6 to 8 months at a time, and then I would take, if I could, most of the summer off. And at the time, I was obsessed with mushroom hunting, and
And you
also I'm still kind of obsessed with it, yeah. But also, I was around people at that time that were very wilderness oriented, and I found myself just always outside. And it's the place that I've always spent so much time outside ever since I was a child. But that sort of, I mean, like the story you just told, Katrina and Jason, being thrust into this, and then choosing to spend all this time there all of a sudden, and then being overwhelmed by it. I don't know, very similar. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I was, Jason, the way that you described it is, you get this opportunity, you go there and your intentions aren't to paint it. It's like this pull. It just kind of like, it
Yeah.
surrounds you and engulfs you. And it's almost just kind of like just beckoning you to react to it. I think that's really interesting because I don't make work about the natural environment at all. So it was interesting for me to put, the show together because I'm really curious about what it is about that part of art making that pulls people to it, that have that as their subject matter. So I guess that's a good segue into the second question, which is kind of, answered a little bit in the first one, but if you have anything to add to it, which is, what is it about the natural world that you find interesting as a visual artist? Not necessarily what brought it to you, but now that you've been making work based on this, what is it about that keeps you coming back and using this as your subject?
So it cut out for a second there. I missed the first part of what you were saying. I'm out in Montauk right now, and I have a very unstable connection.
I was just saying, what is it about the natural world? Now that we've established that it's kind of all of your subject matter of choice, what is it about the natural world that keeps you coming back to it?
For me, when I paint outside a lot. I paint outdoors, paint plein air, and when it's kind of a strange thing. So it started on that residency really when I would find myself out in these amazing remote beaches with incredible rock formations right along the sea. There was this experience, almost like you're in touch with and witnessing sort of the origins of the earth in some strange way. Like there are these forces that are evident that are planted there in front of you, that you're sort of like, in a way, like painting is this really fluid thing, in that, you know, when I'm there, it feels like the geologic time of what's in front of me is happening and unfolding at the same moment as you know the lights changing, as you know, this moment of light. And I had never experienced anything like that before, certainly in my studies and, you know, like figure drawing or anatomy or whatever. This felt more alive to me. And it still does. Every time I'm there, I revisit the same places that I was painting 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I still feel that. It's still as new and fresh and as exciting. It's always, you know, it's as though I've never seen it before, and it's a surprise. And it's, you know, because it feels like it's always, you know, happening right there in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like searching for treasure in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if I'm hiking for 6 hours or something, and I, you know, it might be more or less known to me, but then different times of year, and you know, there are different flowers, and then there are berries, and then there are, you know, and I don't know, I'm also a bird watcher, so there's also, you know, that the migration back and forth, and reading the landscape. But then, you know, every once in a while, and this is when I find myself being drawn into something in front of me and saying, I just know that I have to make a painting out of that. And sometimes it's a confluence of colors or flora and fauna all together, or, you know, maybe there's a depth there or some sort of strange feature in the landscape. I did this big painting of a creek flowing on the rim of an old uranium mine / quarry around here, and that strange view of the creek up here, and then looking way down into a pond at the bottom of this quarry, so strange. And you know, I don't like trails too much, don't tell anybody, but I don't know, I don't really, I like to stray from the trail, and you don't get to this spot if you stay on the trail, you know. I mean, if I see something odd in the distance, I have to check it out and explore. And then it's those times most frequently where I'll find this scene that I have to paint, because we'll probably get into this later, but you know, a narrative, at least for myself, is present. There's a big story going on, you know, and it's not just the natural history, it's human history too. You know, this is a uranium mine, and now it's being reclaimed by a new forest at its bottom. And this, when is this creek going to fall in? I don't know. That's the thing. There's always a story, and it, just like Jason mentioned, you know, it's just constantly interesting. There's always this treasure to find.
Yeah, I like that idea of like the exploration. I mean, I can clearly see that too, like in the difference in your work. Like, you know, Jason, a lot of your paintings, they look like this very idealistic place, and the space is very different, and it's vast and it's open, and the colors are very bright. And then Sean, some of your paintings, like the one that was in process when I visited your studio, that looks like if you went off the trail and got lost. Right? Like
That
that's
happens
your
to me a
vantage
lot.
point. You're like literally in the thickets, you know, and like they're stuck into your pant legs and the thorns are like ripping at your shirt, you know, like
I
it's a
suffer.
very
I put a lot
different
of blood
sense.
into my
Yeah. So I love that aspect of it. Katrina, what about you in terms of the natural world? Like what keeps you coming back to
Oh,
it?
I share both of yours, Sean, and yours, Jason, also, and in your experience of it too, of being, of being lost in this trail and finding your way, trying to find your way before you know it. You spent 6 hours on this small section because there's always this something, whether it's large scale or small scale, that
Yes.
grabs you, and like whether it's something large or small, there's a sense of this incredible wonder. And whether it's something that has a very short lifespan, or something that, like you said, Jason, like geologic time, like rocks expose the origins of the world. There's something just incredibly humbling about about rocks and mountains. And you mentioned, both of you mentioned earlier how, like, back in school we studied. I also started painting the figure. I worked from the figure, and there's just something in nature where we're no longer the center. We're just a minuscule, and for me it's just one of the most like just damning things that that I this rock, or this like section of a cliff, is going to be here probably way after maybe the human race is gone. And it's just the conceit that we have, that like we're nature's masterpiece, but we're really not. It's for me, I think it's just this one. And the more our sciences improve, I really love following technologies such as carbon dating and all of that, and they're learning things such as, like, oh, the earth is not, that's not the age of the earth, it's actually this longer. So it just reveals to us much more about the natural world, and outside of our world, just like we really don't know anything. And for me, that's the sense of wonder that the subject of my work, like how little we know. And I can only kind of like just find a way to portray the vastness of both the beauty, the complexity, and kind of the humility of where we are. So I think I went off in that way, but it's just the sense of wonder, really. And
No, agreed. That's all there for sure.
Yeah,
I also want to point out that it's not Jason's fault the beaches are popular. There's always people around. It's not his fault.
So I can segue into this because, again, as a non kind of landscape, non-natural subject matter artist myself, I'm always curious about influences. Do you find yourself influenced by the history of the genre of landscape painting, and or like what are some of the artists that you maybe admire, even if it's not something that's particularly similar to your work? Is there an artist past or present that you're really drawn to their work in terms of how they tackle the same subject matter?
Yeah, I think that the first time I saw, and then the 100 times later that I saw that the Bastien Lepage painting at the Met, there's that big hallway, and it's the painting of Joan of Arc being visited by saints who are kind of these ghostly figures in the top corner. And it's really that's all well and good, but it's the vegetation, it's the beautiful plants that he painted in the foreground that really got me. And they're very free, but they're specific enough you could probably figure out what species they were. I don't know, I've been sort of working towards that ever since. That was an awakening for me.
That's so funny. Not to like jump in there, but I feel like that painting, I've always thought about you, especially the last number, like since I've known you for the last 10 years or whatever. And mainly I think because of the staging of that painting, where you have these foreground like tall grasses, and it sort of it actually reminds me a little bit. I mean, the painting behind you feels a bit more desolate and gray in a way,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
it very much has that same kind of construction from what I remember. But there's a house in the back.
You're right, and if you look very
And the
closely,
way
there's a vista.
yeah,
It's sort of hidden between branches of a tree, but there's this vista, that's kind of tucked away. And you're right. I haven't thought of that, I don't know, ever, but you're right. There are these sort of there's this depth
yeah.
that I really try to make happen in my painting.
I love the idea too of like you're almost in a way like a geological historian in a way, like like the paintings become, I mean, Katrina, you alluded to this, like, the parts of the planet, if not all of them, are going to be around much longer than we are, right? Individually, and then possibly even collectively as a human race. So, Jason, I'm thinking some of your paintings are like the rocks. Like, what if your painting survive in some, bizarre fashion?
My drawings are not going to survive.
Right, yours are on paper, right? So, but
It didn't survive Hurricane Ida. Right?
Somebody finds these paintings, and 1,000 years from now, like what do some of those cliffs look like, or what do some of those rocks look like?
I know, yeah.
I think that's very interesting to think about.
I know that's true. I revisit spots that I paint, frequently because I concentrate locally so much, and it changes every single year. It just doesn't look the same. So oh my gosh, yeah, something like one of Jason's cliffs or one of Katrina's desert formations. It's
and
gone
your
already.
every strand or twig and blade of grass, it's incredible.
Yeah, and that's already gone.
Yeah, it's gone. Like it probably like after it's a moment that that you've carefully inscribed in it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And Katrina, how about you in terms of artists or influences?
God, one artist I remember is Via Selmans. She's her work is just and her process for me it's just incredible. Also, she takes painstaking long to make each work, so she is a big influence to me for like I think from the very beginning when I was doing my BFA, but then later on, the more I became interested in just like geologic time and the sciences space like that, I became interested in like artists who are working with either photography or new media. I like Oliver Eliasson, or
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah, Trevor Paglen. I love his work. They're always involved with what's out like the beyond. It's kind of a dystopian thing with Trevor Paglen and James Baylog, who's a photographer who, I don't know if you've heard of him.
No, I haven't.
He used to be a geomorphologist. He used to be studied geology. Became a National Geographic photographer who was photographing endangered species, and then after that, what he became big for was he was one of the first photographers who did like full-length beautiful documentaries recording the recession of the glaciers in Greenland and Iceland. And it's probably 15 years ago, and he made a big movement out of it. So and now many are doing it, but he was one of the first ones. So I'm interested in the scientists who kind of use and
Is he the guy that did Chasing Ice?
Chasing Ice, that's him.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah,
that's a great film. Like, blew my mind.
He's beautifully made. That's the thing. He's also as a photographer, he's very seductive, and he has Scarlett Johansson singing doing the theme song for his singing. It's like
now we know the reason.
No, she was at the ending, but throughout the whole film, it's just very sweeping, kind of this kind of geograph, you know, how National Geographic feature length, you know, documentary about nature would be. So it has that quality. It's very like sweeping. So
Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I grew up going to the Met a lot, and as a kid, I was really into the Frederick Church and Albert Bierstadt paintings, particularly the huge ones that are at the Met, and
Yeah, definitely.
how like cinematic they are, you know, like they can hold you for a long time. And I don't know, like there was like, as I got older and was thinking about them, there was also this sort of almost like advertisement kind of end to them, almost like this go west kind of like ad for, you know, to explore America. But there are also, there's so many art that I grew up obsessively looking at that in hindsight, most of them were focused on landscape. And so like there's the whole painting, the hole in the ground painting that's in the show is based on one of Courbet's grotto paintings. And I don't know, there's always a lot of other artists in my head when I'm working out ideas from my own work.
The hard question.
Yeah, it is. But I get, and then like technique wise, when I'm thinking about like my process and how I make paintings, I guess like there's a painter named Neil Welliver whose work I really love, and I sort of, the process of going out into nature and making paintings from life, bringing them back into the studio and working up a large scale painting.
Your ethic is the same.
And yeah, exactly. That dedication to going out and recording, and whether staying true to that sketch or working up something, you know, a bit different. But what I love about his work is it's very realistic, but it's not photographic. Like there's very much about the paint, and there's sort of there's a precision to it, I guess. I don't know. I've been obsessed with him for a long time, so maybe that's my answer. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think that's awesome because you touched on practice. So I mean, I think that's a great segue for the next question, is just in terms of what each of your practice looks like walk me through, you know, making a work, you know, in the case of Sean and Jason, your paintings, and Katrina, one of those large scale drawings, for instance, like, is it, you know, I know that there's some painting from the actual location for all of you, but clearly you can't, I mean, your work is also labor intensive. There's no way you're finishing it on site. So there has to be some form of documentation, whether it be like a lot of, you know, traditional hand sketches or photography or both. So just, you know, walk me through that practice for you. And Sean, we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's all of that. I mean, if I'm doing a large scale, complicated painting, I'll visit the spot many times, and I mean, geez, I might take 1,000 photographs, and I won't use them all, but I'll be, you know, poring over them and figuring out what I like and what I've captured. But it's also really standing. It all comes back to standing there and looking, and I mean, maybe taking mental notes, maybe writing notes down about what I want to include and why, and what I'm really noticing, you know, what those points of interest are for me. And then, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of studio work for me, and it is labor intensive. I mean, it's labor, which actually, I don't know. I kind of want to throw a wrench in the cog, and you skipped a question. Which well, but here's the thing. This is a question I was really excited about, because I can't really talk about influences without talking about people that I'm bucking against.
Yeah,
because
go for it.
And I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't know. I don't want to theorize too much in this format, but I feel like it is sort of an act of defiance. I think I put this in my blurb to you, to paint these complicated landscapes now, because Well, for so many reasons. I mean, I think that there's a lot of boring art being made, and so much of it is so simple, and it's just quick meaning making, and I don't even know if it makes terribly much meaning. And I like the idea of laboring to trying hard. It's not about the labor; it's trying hard
Yeah.
to make meaning and to capture this thing that I think is so important. And I don't know, I don't want to name names in a negative light, but I am definitely working against a lot of contemporary artists. At least that's what I feel.
Yeah. I think that's important. You need that in your studio to, you know, like I go through the same thing all the time too. Like, you know, and Katrina, we talked about this a little bit today in the parking lot when you were dropping off your work, you know, like how long it takes if you're involved in a process. I think we all are, like all of our processes are very complicated and labor intensive. And, you know,
Yeah.
I'll catch myself every once in a while just thinking like, why don't I just do something easier? Like,
Oh yeah,
like
I
you're saying,
get
Sean,
that
there's a
all
lot
the
of easy
time.
art out there.
No,
Yeah,
because
I
it's
get that all
hard.
the time. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
even have like galleries telling me, can you make something smaller that we can
Yeah,
sell? They
right.
actually said that. I have somebody in my show say I said something like I overheard like something like professional suicide or something
Yeah,
like that, or
yeah,
yeah, I forgot the term. It was a long time ago because in the beginning I have drawings that I can make that my very first big drawings will take 9 months to make. It's like, okay, so 1 year you can only make one piece. So you
exactly.
know,
Yeah.
like that's the like you can put your
no word. I feel you. That's
yeah. But I really agree with what you with met Sean about, you know, like you know what the most precious resource really is time, and
Mhm,
labor is time.
mhm.
And when you invest all the time in a piece, that's something existential, and that's a huge
Yeah.
risk. You
Yeah.
know, we live in like times where you're meant to be productive. I think when they say productive, like you have to, there's a pressure to churn X number of works to fatten your portfolio so that you're marketable. You know, you're not marketable if you only make 1.2 pieces a year or something.
Right.
Right. And
But
thank you,
there is
Darren.
some, yeah, but there's something sincere and legitimate and
Yeah.
just meaningful. And like you said, a resistance, you know, when you invest, you know, time and this really like when you're working on in your work that takes a long time, you know, like you change during that time, you know,
Yeah.
all that, you know, is imprinted, it's recorded in the work, not maybe in some sort of cipher. And for me, so that's why I really understand that, you know, how that is an like integral part of, you know, labor intensive work.
Yeah,
So
I also think there is some kind of authority. I mean, if you've sacrificed that much to make this thing, then and it's evident, you know. I
yeah,
mean,
Right.
you know, if like an 8 foot pencil drawing, I mean, that's an incredible object, you know, that you've made. So you can't help but appreciate that, you know. I mean, anybody can see that it's a lot of time and effort, and I don't know. I think that it has an authority, and I think that it causes people to maybe look a little harder for why you made it,
Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
and the communication you know is that can then start.
So Katrina, do you work from photos? Like, I mean, because you're taking something very small, like on those drawings in particular, and you're making them what a thousand times their actual size.
oh, I actually have the scale or something like okay, I have this drawing of a section of a tree bark. You know, it's actually the resulting drawing is 5 by 8 feet, but the section of tree bark is the size of my hand.
Mm.
So like I look for these things in nature. They're small, or whether it's rock or tree bark that resembles like some remote craggy landscape. So basically I count on my photographs of certain trees, and I revisit certain trees or rocks or mountains or canyons like really like every year. I would take photos. Like sometimes I don't know exactly if I will use them, but I'll just collect all these images, or they're based on my photos, and I manipulate these photos too. Like they're sometimes so they're all heavily photoshopped. I change the color. Sometimes I layer them with like forest fire smoke that I find in the internet. So they have this. So they end up becoming really, really vague looking as you know, as a Photoshop image. And then when I transfer them into a large, then it becomes different. So there's then yes, I really count on and I take videos too. So yeah, I don't work. I really count on like these photos that I manipulate and scale them up in the work. I've tried in the beginning to do projection, but it's just it didn't work. It's hard to draw me to work with projector because it's the bright light and it's
It helps for form more than it does for.
yeah, but I don't get the sense that I'm in the work.
Yeah.
That I'm so I know, like, because when you guys make larger work, you're surrounded, you get lost in the process.
Yeah.
So I don't have that with it. So I still, you know, I have a printout that I grid out. So then that's why I work from like in 8 parts usually. So I work from a grid. So
Amazing. And Jason, how about you?
Yeah, there's sort of 2 different directions of my work. So most of my work, I go out and it begins painting from life, plein air. Some of my work is made from found imagery, and so there's 2 of those in the show. One is a satellite image that I've painted at a really huge scale. The other one is this hole in the ground painting that I mentioned before. Those were found images. I didn't take them. I wasn't like in front of them in any way. I mean, I was in front of my screen as I searched for those images. But the most of my work, though, is I go out and repeatedly visit a place, make a lot of paintings from life, a lot of versions of the same place usually, whether it's different times of day, even the same time of day, just different compositions and noticing different things. And I take lots of photos at the same time, bring all that back into the studio, and then sort of a process that I started with my first show in New York, which was kind of a more like performative show in a way. It was all, the show opened with all of these plein air paintings that I had done and brought back in. And I had actually like printed my reference onto the large canvases so that people were seeing these huge views that I've been painting from life. And in the space of the gallery, I painted over all of that using my sketches and my photo reference on a screen so that people could see sort of, it was a recreation of what I feel is my experience painting outdoors from life with you know, encounters with random people that happen, you know, are hiking by and come over and see what I'm doing. They can see the place, they can see my painting at the same time. And so this was sort of, you know, I was thinking of those canvases as like a surrogate for the actual place, and you know, seeing the image and seeing the painting at the same time. And so often I'll continue that in the studio, and you know, I'll.
So you were painting in the gallery, and people would come into the gallery?
Yeah, so the gallery was my studio for my first few shows.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it was great. It was also torture, as you're hearing everyone's comments as you're making your paintings. But it was, overall, it was great, and it was such an amazing experience. It was with a big gallery in New York, and so as I'm working on that, like I create time limits, I guess, for myself, as though I was painting outdoors. So I paint a section, and I'll have to paint it in an hour or whatever, because if I was outside, light would be changing. And so there's this, you know, you were talking about whether it's obsessiveness or this compulsion for detail. Like, I think that is always, there's definitely an obsessiveness. And I think, like, there's an attentiveness, you know, when you're drawing or painting anything, to try to make it look as you see it. But I think the big the big problem with it is also trying to achieve a sort of, it's like a desire for effortlessness.
Yeah.
So there's this obsession for detail and trying to capture something in a way that still has a freshness and life, and not overwork it and you know, until it's dead is
my parameter to that same end. My parameter is usually from 5 or 6 feet away. If the detail, you know, is more than will show up with, I hope my optometrist gave me 20/20 vision, but if I can't see it beyond 5 or 6 feet, then or you know what I'm saying? Like, it has to register there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then anything in front of that, forget it. What's the point? Because I also like the experience to be someone standing in front of the canvas and saying and feeling like they're there. You know, it's true to life. Hopefully, the sizes of the leaves and everything are right, just about there, 5 to 6 feet. So why go beyond that?
Mine, I'm often, it's a similar sort of vantage point and distance, I think, for mine as well. And I haven't gotten to experience Katrina's work in person yet, but there's something that's, I think, just awe-inspiring, I guess, of taking something that's this thing and blowing it up to a huge scale. And it feels very much like, they almost feel, in terms of what I'm seeing, what I've seen online and on social media of your work, but they almost feel like rubbings. Like there's something very much about the quality of touch to them that seems really important.
And it feels like you can get close to them and look for more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They are rubbings. Well, they're actually, I don't know what to call them. They're finger drawings, or they're that I started using the pastel pencils, but I apply the pigment with my hands and palm, with gloves, latex gloves, suede gloves. Suede is great to grow.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, like old
like powdered
suede.
graphite or charcoal or.
Yeah. Charcoal. I mix charcoal with soft pastels. Now it's becoming more and more pastels because they're even softer. They create this really just beautiful, smoky, hazy surface. I love it. It's just but that's where they're also very light, because it also takes away a lot of the color. So it's that's why it's just very very light, not dark.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I have a technical question for you, Katrina. How do you seal your drawings? Like, I mean, those things must be so finicky, the surface. Like, how do you, and they're that big, what do you do to the surface, if anything?
Just don't put water. It's hard. Sealant? Are you saying?
Yeah, you don't like do like a spray varnish or anything, do you?
No.
Okay.
No, they don't, because it's heavily rubbed in. It's really impossible to erase. Contrary, like there's no powerful eraser can erase charcoal, right? Like there's always, you're going to leave. So it's really, there won't be powder in it, because they're very thin, because they're just really rubbed into the surface.
I didn't know that's how you made those. That's very interesting. That's super.
Yeah, that's amazing. Christmas is coming up. Suede gloves, guys.
Yeah. I think that's so neat. Yeah.
It's really, it kind of, I guess. So you know what, in truth, maybe the first artist who influenced me would be, you know, the Lascaux caves or Altamira, you know.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome that you mentioned that. I have all the books. I'm obsessed with that.
Those are my
Yeah. I was saying that to Katrina today in the parking lot too. Like, that's one of the things. And Jason and Sean, you know, seeing your work for the first time that I love, only because I can't paint that way, is this idea of, you know, walking into a studio and you see the work from 10 or 12 feet and it's like, oh my God, it's photorealistic. And then the closer you get, you start seeing brush strokes and you start seeing marks. And like, I love that. I mean, there's like a Velasquez painting in the Frick collection where it's like one of those ruffled collars. I can't remember the name of the painting, but it's some
Oh
duke
my
or something
God,
wearing one of those
yes.
ruffled collars. And I was like,
Oh God,
this dude's
yeah.
got some chops. And then I got up close and I was like, this guy's such a liar. It's just literally like you could see the
Yeah.
brush strokes, but he
Yeah,
does it
It's
so
it's
effortlessly
astounding. It
that,
happens all the time,
and I'm like,
right?
how I can't paint that way. So for me, that's just like, that's amazing. Like when you're,
like
and Jason, you
magic.
alluded to that, like you've done it so many times that it looks like the real thing, but it also looks effortless, like, and you can see that when you get up close to the work. And that's one of the things that I was really taken aback by with both of your paintings is, from far away, I'm like, oh my God, it's like almost like a photographic print. And then you get up close and you're like, no, it's just like some white on there and on some highlights and, and like, but then you step back and there it is. And I just think that's amazing. And it's, of course, it's tens of thousands. And in your case, Katrina, like rubbings, it's tens of thousands of brush strokes that make this larger thing. And that idea of all these things working together to create this whole is just totally fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez.
So we said, I guess the next one that I have here is about space. And we've kind of alluded to that, a little bit already. But maybe not necessarily a specific place, or if there is a specific place, we can talk about that, but just the idea of place in general, like, the place where you are at any given moment, in terms of making work. I know, Katrina, in your case, you were saying it was in Wyoming where you went on a residency and that was kind of pivotal. And Jason, for you too, the tropics. And then Sean, your just love of the woods. So how do you, I guess an easier way of putting it is, how do you know you're in the right spot? Like, what is it about a spot that kind of,
I've gone away and I've come back.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's sort of it. I mean, I've traveled a bunch, and I did grow up around here, so it's home anyway. And I know the woods here, and it's very simple for me.
Yeah.
I love this. I mean, one of these days I might have to branch out. People are going to get tired of winter woods from,
I don't know,
southern Jersey, but
yeah,
I don't know. I just love it, and it's comfortable, and I
Yeah.
know it. I know it. I understand it, I guess, mostly.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good answer for sure.
Where are you in Lambertville? No. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. We're very lucky to have so much parkland around here. I mean, like you were talking about in the beginning of this discussion, it's preserved land,
Mm-hmm.
and they're letting old farmland become woods again, and some meadows, and it's just slowly. I'm fascinated by this. These are young forests. They're only, some of the oldest ones are probably 80 years old. It was all farms,
Yeah.
It was just clear cut. And now here we are in the beginning stages of hopefully, eventually, ancient forests.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have no more ancient forests in the Philippines. Like,
Right.
I think maybe 90% of the primary. Well, actually, no. David Attenborough said he even knows it more. For maybe it's 95% of the primary rainforest in the Philippines, specifically in the Philippines, is gone.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Well,
That's
the
really
only
sad. Huh?
no, I was going to say the only primeval tract of forest is on the Rutgers campus in New Jersey. The only original, virgin forest in New Jersey is
in New Jersey.
Is on the Rutgers campus.
Huh.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's tiny, tiny, tiny. I don't know.
Well, I hope I just hope for as far as the rest of the North America, and I guess the rest of the world, we just preserve what's left. It's really
no kidding.
Katrina, so you don't have any pull to make any kind of work based on the fact that 95% of the forests in your home country are kaputs?
I do have a plan. I think I'm going to start doing it at Millet.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Maybe I'll just be lazy there. Maybe I'll just be overwhelmed by. It's my first residency since the pandemic. I'm usually I'm just I don't know, like I'm residency crazy. I really do as much of it as I can. But pandemic came and I had shows and I couldn't go away. So this one will be I don't know yet. I don't know if I'll actually like be make work, but that is my idea, just to make something that is more like a lush tropical based drawing, just this thick, something that's in line of what you're doing, Sean, with your work, which is density of twigs and grasses. So I'm thinking of making something like that, but I'm not sure. I don't know yet how to, because I've been making mostly work based on like rock striations, or tree bark, something that's arid. So when I look up Trump and it's tropical, that's like green and lush and like it's so it'll be an interesting direction.
Greens are difficult.
What?
Greens are difficult. Oof.
We'll see. Maybe I'll just do charcoal on it and just kind of give the feeling that it's green.
Ooh, I can't wait to see those.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see if we can get there. So, but yeah.
And how about the sense of space? We talk. I mean,
yeah, the sense for me, it's not a specific space. For me, I guess it's like an accumulation of my experience of spaces. So it's not specific, and for me, my experience of spaces, actually, they're all physical. I'm a hiker. I love hiking, and I'm as much as hiking, I'm terrible at reading maps and trails. So I end up hiking maybe double the amount of time that a normal person would, because I also daydream. I collect rocks, I collect bark, I do all these other things. You know, my artist would do that, right? So
mushrooms,
like mushrooms, like stuff like or carcasses. I'll tell you the story.
Oh my God, skulls and feathers.
Skulls, fur. Oh, I gotta tell this story in Wyoming in a little bit and why that was such a pivotal one for me. So for me, it is. So for me, my experience of place is not just from the pictures, but it's also like these physical. I touch a lot of things. You know, from the sand or the rocks or the wood and the water, because I've done a residency that's close to the ocean too.
If you're standing next to water, you have to throw a stone in. It's just, I think you're a fool if you don't throw a stone in the water.
Yeah, or skip it.
I did. Oh, no, I have many times because I suck at skipping. I can't. I'm terrible at that. Yeah. Everybody I know seems to be masters at it. Like everybody I know seems to like. I'm probably the only person in America who doesn't know how to skip a stone.
It's the arm angle. You got to keep 3/4.
I cannot. Yeah, I know. So Wyoming was pivotal for me. Anyway. So not only is it physical, but the smell is there's always because there's mountain lion, or I didn't see a mountain lion, but I know some of my other residents saw some cat-looking creature. There's always coyotes. So there's always a kill outside my studio, like a fresh poor antelope. You know, so
it's rare in New Jersey.
What?
It's rare in New Jersey for something like that to happen.
Yeah.
I'm envious. That sounds amazing.
I mean, we have roadkill, but we drive by it.
Right. Yeah, right. There's gore. There's gore all over the road.
But not outside your studio. Outside the studio. Okay, another one that you have to watch out for bears over there, because apparently bears love acrylic paint. They're not allowing in this residency.
Wait a minute. What?
That's amazing.
I don't know which one. Is it acrylic or oil? But in this residency, they said like they're not saying they're prohibiting, or they're just like suggesting like use either bring only oil or bring only acrylic, because for some reason bears love one of them.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Never heard of this before. Jason, I saw a bear painting in your studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had black bears near the studio in New Jersey and up in the Adirondacks as well.
Yeah.
And you're an oil painter.
Yeah, I don't know
Oil
if
painter.
yeah, they did have stories in this place about the bears. Maybe there's specific bears because I guess and they seem to be that area seems to have bad bad bear, not bad bears, but like very thin,
They're all
hungry.
good bears.
Huh?
They're all good bears.
No, I mean good bears, but they're always thin. For
Yeah.
some reason, like maybe they're juveniles and they don't know how to hunt yet, but all the bear encounters that they had near that residency, they're like sad looking bears. Like they're probably, yeah, I don't know if it's a territorial thing or they're not getting enough food over there. So yeah, I've heard sad stories over there.
Too much cadmium and cobalt.
Oh yeah, the heavy metals.
Heavy metals, right? Yeah.
So I guess I have another question that wasn't on the list that I was thinking about. Is there any, I know all of you work in terms of series. I mean, there's similar titles. I mean, Sean, you have there's one where there's 6 or 7 in the same series, and Jason, you're painting the same place. Katrina, you're using the same subject matter, various trees. So is there a new body of work on the horizon for any of you that you're thinking about, like a new series?
I don't want to give it away.
I'm trying to break a story here. No, that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would appreciate a push, because I think I do have to innovate a little bit and probably expand. Although I'm in love with the winter woods. It's so colorful.
And you handle it so well.
Yeah, I know. Why stray? But I don't know. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, for me, it's nothing. They're all ongoing. The series, it's hard to make a series when
and then stop. Why stop?
stop. Yeah, and plus, okay, when you plan a series, because the works takes such a long time. Let's say you can plan a series of 5, and let's say a work takes like 8 months to make.
Yeah, it's a 5-year series at least. Yeah.
Yeah, but then sometimes during it changes. Like
you start
you
another
change,
one, right?
Ideas come in, a pandemic comes in, you go to another residency, all these ideas start coming in, and before you know it, the series goes in this direction. So it kind of, it's hard to really make series when, but the videos are with smaller works and videos. It's easier to make a shorter, more. So so that's so they're all ongoing for me. There's nothing new really. I think I'm just going to. I was just telling you earlier today. My new series is to make a work that stays in America, because all my work goes abroad, and I have nothing to show curators here. Yeah. So it's really, for me, it's a dilemma. I've got invited to do certain shows, and it's hard to ship work from galleries in the Philippines to here. It's usually easier one way.
Yeah.
So I will have to fly over there and bring it here. So
I have the opposite problem.
The opposite.
Yeah, everything stays here.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. So Jason, can you talk about yours? Because I know that just from speaking with you about it, you obviously have gone back to these places, right? That island that started your whole drive post-graduate school.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Main parts, yeah. Oh, sorry, I think you locked up there.
I still got you.
With that again? Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, can you speak about that? Like, how frequently do you go back to these places? And I also found it very interesting, looking at some of the paintings from the Adirondacks versus the wide open spaces with hardly any, if any, trees in the tropics.
Yeah. well, I haven't been able to get back to the Caribbean at all in the last year and a half. I was there right as the pandemic started for a show, and I was in St. Bart's. And then I haven't been back since last February. And the Adirondacks are a lot easier to get to. I have a studio up there, and we're up there each summer. And so that's in pandemic times an easier one to get to. Yeah, I keep returning to St. Bart's and to Bermuda as places, and the next few pieces that I'm sketching out right now are worked from either plein air paintings that I made there or photos that I took there that I want to work up into a painting. So revisiting those places. But I guess if there's like a new direction in the new work, it's just that I'm trying to bring a suggestion of or some indication of elements that are normally outside the picture into the picture in some way. Whether it's just material that's around me or that I'm using that, is part of the illusion of the picture, that trying to make that more evident and obvious in some way. Some of them have painted sides that are indicating, like, the towel that I'm sitting on when I'm making my plein air painting, or bringing in, like, I'm just sketching them out now, so I'm not, I can't really say what the paintings are going to end up being, but trying to just be aware of these things that are so important to the plein air painting process, smells and sounds and things that are not tangible, that I don't normally depict, and trying to find ways to suggest them a little bit more and emphasize those more like ethereal kind of
it's so difficult, I
things
find,
that
right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
and how do you picture that? So,
well, that, and also if I put like a mushroom in the painting or a bird in the painting, it's about that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
right. It takes over. Yeah.
I mean, that's that made me think of the painting in your studio, Jason, when I was asking you for titles and you said, "Oh, I call that one the Russian," right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like
so I was making a
like
painting,
beautiful, amazing vista, and then there's the one guy in it,
And this guy, well, because I was painting the place and no one was there, and then this guy showed up and just sort of sat down right in the view of where I was painting. Like, I didn't know I was there. I was sort of in this little nook of a rock, and just sat down in front of me and just sat there, like, staring at his reflection in this little, like, tidal pool, like contemplating life or whatever. And then as I was packing up and leaving, I heard him take a phone call, and he was talking in Russian, and it's like, there it is.
Yeah,
the Russian.
I love that. That's
and so then I worked a large painting from a different angle that was actually, when I was leaving the space, I took a photo of it from a totally different side, and thought that it was, considering him being in the picture, I thought it was a better composition to have him in the scene from where I was, because it was kind of an afterthought. As I was 3/4 of the way finished with my sketch, he sat down, and yeah, I wish that sketch was here, but it's not. So that would have been a fun one to put in.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more questions. Do you guys have any thoughts, any other things to add? Things that I didn't ask you that you want me to ask you?
Yeah, right. I don't know. I forgot to say everything that I meant to say, but that's not true. No, I don't know that I have anything specific.
Well, I'm excited to be doing this show with the both of you.
Yeah, no, likewise. I can't imagine a better matchup.
Yeah, me too. And I hope to meet you both, like
likewise,
one day.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Come on down to Lambertville. I'd offer to teach you how to skip stones, but I gave that up. I don't teach anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
I want to see your studio, both of your studios.
Yeah. Yeah. Katrina
where are
comes
you
down to
based
this area.
now?
I stalk her on her Instagram account, and she took a picture of
Yeah, I
the,
was in Lambert for like, hey, I live there. How come you didn't come?
Yeah.
Like, I
you know,
didn't know.
that plastic swan in the canal in New Hope.
Yes.
She
Is it
took a
still
picture
there?
of that, and I just immediately was like, I know where that is.
I know. That's
I
a
know where you
famous.
are.
Wait, is it still there after all the storms and no, it's gone?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
It's been there forever. I mean, as long
I
as I've lived in town,
know.
that's like 14 years I've seen that plastic swan in that canal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, this has been great. I think it's gonna be awesome. And I keep looking at the recording button, making sure it didn't like quit out on me at some point, like, and we missed the whole thing. So it's still beeping, it's still going. I think this is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, once again, I want to just thank everybody for taking the time, making it happen, both the talk and the show. And Sean and Jason, I'll see you on Sunday. And
Good. Yeah.
we'll put this
Take
puppy up.
videos, pictures.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get
videos.
yeah, somebody to dig a video of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be
Thank
great.
you so much, Darren. I'm so honored that really it's you know, I'm so touched. Like I'm so happy, and I can't wait to meet you, Sean and Jason. Like you know, somewhere in New Jersey or elsewhere. Who knows? You know, we're all nature lovers somehow.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a bump in somewhere.
Yeah.
Some woods or I don't know. I haven't been to the Caribbean, but you know.
Yeah, maybe when the show's over, we can all get together. We can do
Go
something.
to
Yeah.
the Caribbean.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, we'll sign off.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah. Happy hunting. And
And
Katrina, have fun at your residency.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll update you on how it goes, and you know, I'm sure it's going to be because Darren just had just amazing words about it. So I guess
It's a great residency. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forward to it.
A lot of fun.
Mhm.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Darren.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Yeah, no, great to meet you guys. I know you guys kind of.
It's like Hollywood Squares. I love it. All right. Take care.
Take care. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.